An update now on the investigation into the deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife. There's new evidence. It paints a different picture of the timeline of the couple's final days. Last month, police found Hackman and his wife dead in their New Mexico home. Investigators say Hackman died a week after his wife.
Gene Hackman's final words were very unsettling. "Promise me, you'll never touch the living room floor." No one knew that beneath those aged wooden planks lay a secret that could shatter Hollywood's darkest legacy. Soon after his death, the world finally understood what he meant by his words and why he was particular about the living room floor.
The deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife. ABC's Zareen Shaw is in Los Angeles with new information about a call she may have made before her death.
Gene Hackman's final words echoed through the dimly lit hospital room, his voice trembling with an unusual urgency. "Promise me, you'll never touch the living room floor." His son, Jack Hackman, stood frozen, confused by the strange request, but he nodded, unwilling to question a man who had lived through decades of Hollywood glory and heartbreak. It was the summer of 2001 when Gene Hackman, the legendary actor known for his iconic roles in The French Connection and Unforgiven, quietly retreated from the spotlight to his secluded Adobe-style home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Far from the flashing cameras and relentless media, he found solace in painting and writing, slowly fading from the public eye. But after his death, strange rumors began to circulate. What was so sacred that Gene was willing to keep a secret even in death? Stay tuned. What you're about to hear will blow your mind. The official cause of death was ruled as complications from cardiovascular disease, but the bizarre circumstances surrounding his wife, Betsy Arakawa's death just days later, an apparent accidental overdose, raised eyebrows. Even more unsettling was the fact that their dog, Zinna, was also found dead in her crate.
New Mexico State Public Health veterinarian Aaron Epps then shares that Zinna, who was discovered in a closed kennel near Betsy's body on February 26th, could have possibly died from dehydration and starvation.
The media speculated endlessly. Was it a double suicide or something more sinister? The family, however, refused to release the full autopsy report, claiming privacy concerns. This only fueled the conspiracy theories that Gene had taken a dark secret to his grave. Yet, the only thing Jack could cling to was his father's final request: never touch the living room floor. For over 2 decades, Jack honored that promise. The grand wooden floor beneath the towering fireplace remained untouched, even as the cracks deepened and the creaking sounds grew louder with age. Some believed Gene's request was symbolic, perhaps a way of preserving the history of the house. Others dismissed it as the ramblings of an old man losing grip on reality. But Jack knew his father well. Gene Hackman was never a man of empty words. Then, on a cold evening in January 2025, everything changed. Jack had been struggling with sleepless nights, haunted by the unanswered questions surrounding his father's death. That night, as he sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the eerie sound of the creaking floor seemed almost alive. Unable to resist any longer, Jack retrieved a crowbar and knelt by the fireplace, where the cracks in the wooden planks were deepest. With trembling hands, he pried up the first plank. A cloud of dust and debris filled the air, but beneath the aged wood, something metallic glimmered faintly in the dim light. Jack's heart pounded as he uncovered a weathered metal box, rusted and heavy with age. He carefully lifted it out and placed it on the coffee table. For a moment he hesitated, recalling his father's stern expression on that hospital bed, but curiosity, mixed with years of frustration, finally overpowered him. With a deep breath, Jack forced the lock open. Inside, he found a collection of aged photographs, handwritten letters, and what appeared to be an unreleased film script from Gene's early acting days. But beneath the memorabilia lay something far more chilling: a small velvet pouch. Jack opened the pouch to reveal an antique gold pocket watch, engraved with the initials MH. Confused, he sifted through the letters until he found one, dated 1967, addressed to MH. It was the year Gene starred in Bonnie and Clyde, the film that catapulted him to stardom. The letter, written in Gene's unmistakable handwriting, read, "To MH, I've kept my promise all these years. No one knows the truth, and no one ever will, but if you're reading this, it means time has finally caught up with me. Forgive me for what happened that night. I had no choice. I buried the truth beneath my feet, hoping it would never resurface. But secrets have a way of finding their way back to the light." Jack felt a chill crawl down his spine. Who was MH, and what truth had his father been hiding for nearly half a century? Brace yourself. You won't believe what's coming next. Desperate for answers, Jack dug deeper into the box and found an old black and white photograph of Gene, standing beside a man in a dark trench coat. The man's face was partially obscured, but Jack noticed the initials MH scrawled on the back. The next morning, Jack contacted a retired Hollywood journalist who had covered Gene's career in the 1970s. After some digging, the journalist revealed something shocking. In 1967, during the filming of Bonnie and Clyde, a production assistant named Michael Harrington mysteriously disappeared.
Of Michael Harrington, the young and engaging man from whom you're about to hear, and by whom I am about to be whiplashed. But when Dr. Heller took the subject up with Mr. Kennedy's successor, Mr. Johnson reacted with enthusiasm.
His body was never found, and the case was eventually closed due to lack of evidence. But rumors persisted that Harrington had discovered something he wasn't meant to see, something that involved powerful figures in Hollywood. Some believed he was silenced, others speculated he fled the country. But what if Gene knew the truth? What if, on that fateful night, Gene was forced to make an unthinkable choice to protect his career or his life? Jack's mind raced. Could the pocket watch have belonged to Michael Harrington, and was this why his father spent the rest of his life hiding in the shadows, far from the spotlight that once adored him? Driven by the need for closure, Jack returned to the living room and removed more planks from the floor. Beneath the dirt and debris, he discovered something far more disturbing: a small, decayed leather wallet. Inside was an ID card belonging to Michael Harrington. The truth Gene Hackman had buried for decades was now staring Jack in the face. What could this possibly be? Let's get into it. Gene had indeed taken something to his grave, something that explained his sudden retreat from Hollywood and the eerie warning to never touch the floor. But why? Had Gene accidentally caused Harrington's death, or was he protecting someone else involved in the crime? The answers may never be fully known, but one thing was clear. Gene Hackman's final request wasn't the rambling of an aging man. It was a desperate attempt to keep the past buried forever. Jack's hands trembled as he read the letter over and over again. The initials MH echoed in his mind, but the golden pocket watch and the cryptic message only deepened the mystery. What dark truth had his father hidden beneath this very floor for nearly half a century? The dimly lit living room felt heavier than ever, as if the walls themselves had been holding on to secrets that were never meant to be revealed. Jack couldn't sleep that night. The discovery of Michael Harrington's ID card and the letter from Gene Hackman had opened a door to a past he never knew existed, one that his father had desperately tried to bury. Over the next few days, Jack found himself drowning in old memories and unanswered questions. He locked himself in Gene Hackman's dusty study, surrounded by relics of his father's iconic career, scripts from The French Connection.
French Connection 2, the only film that could follow The French Connection. When Gene Hackman created the character of Detective Popeye Doyle in The French Connection.
Unforgiven and Mississippi Burning lined the shelves, along with photographs from decades spent on Hollywood sets. But none of these offered answers to the mystery beneath the living room floor. The wooden planks that had once echoed with the laughter of family gatherings now felt cold and heavy, guarding something far more sinister. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that whatever his father had been protecting wasn't just about Michael Harrington's disappearance. It was something bigger. Something that had haunted Gene Hackman to the point of abandoning Hollywood and retreating to this secluded adobe-style home in Santa Fe. Then, one evening, a memory surfaced. It was the summer of 2001, just after Gene retired from acting. Jack remembered sitting with his father by the fireplace when Gene, seemingly lost in thought, said, "There are things in this world that only make sense when you've seen the darkness behind the spotlight." At the time, Jack dismissed it as the ramblings of an aging actor reflecting on his career. But now, those words felt like a confession. With a deep breath, Jack returned to the living room, crowbar in hand. The dim light cast shadows across the cracked wooden floor as he carefully examined each plank. His eyes scanned every inch until he noticed something subtle, a shift in the grain pattern near the fireplace. His heart pounded as he wedged the crowbar beneath the edge of the board. The wood resisted at first, creaking and groaning, but with a sharp crack, it gave way. Beneath the floor, hidden in the darkness, lay several burlap sacks coated in dust and time. Jack reached down and pulled one out. It felt heavy, solid. When he loosened the drawstring, golden coins spilled onto the floor, glinting faintly in the dim light. But there was more. Nestled beneath the sacks was a small, rusted lockbox. Jack's breath caught as he forced the lock open. Inside were a stack of old photographs, faded documents, and a weathered audio cassette labeled Confession, MH, 1967. With trembling hands, Jack rushed to the study, dusted off an old cassette player, and pressed play. A weak, trembling voice echoed softly from the cassette player, breaking the heavy silence of the room. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm long gone. My name is Michael Harrington. In 1967, I worked as a production assistant on Bonnie and Clyde. But what most people never knew..."
You've read the story of Jesse James, of how he lived and died. If you're still in need of something to read, here's the story of Bonnie and Clyde.
Was that I stumbled upon something that could have destroyed the careers of some of the most powerful men in Hollywood. They were involved in something dark, bribery, blackmail, and even murder. I managed to steal the evidence, photographs, and documents that could expose them, but I knew I wouldn't live long enough to bring them down. Gene Hackman, he was the only one I trusted. He agreed to hide the truth beneath his own home, promising it would stay buried for as long as necessary. If you found this, be careful. People will kill to keep this secret from ever seeing the light. The tape clicked off. Jack sat in stunned silence. This wasn't just about gold. His father had been protecting a Hollywood scandal that had been buried for over 50 years, a secret so dark that it had cost Michael Harrington his life. But why had Gene Hackman taken the burden upon himself? Had he been protecting his career? Or was it something deeper, loyalty to a friend who had trusted him with the truth? Jack's mind raced with possibilities. He sifted through the photographs and documents in the lockbox. Some of the photos showed familiar faces, powerful Hollywood producers, actors, and directors from the late 1960s caught in compromising situations. Others revealed transactions and secret meetings that hinted at blackmail and corruption that ran deep within the industry. It all made sense now. Gene's sudden retreat from Hollywood, his reclusive life in Santa Fe, and his strange final words on his deathbed. "Promise me, you'll never touch the living room floor." He had spent the last 2 decades guarding a secret that could shatter the legacies of some of the most influential figures in Hollywood history. The weight of the discovery pressed heavily on Jack's chest. What was he supposed to do now? Exposing this truth could bring justice to Michael Harrington's death, but it could also ruin the lives and reputations of people who had long escaped accountability. For days, Jack wrestled with the decision. He even considered burying the evidence back beneath the floor, just as his father had done. But deep down, he knew that Gene Hackman wouldn't have gone to such lengths to hide the truth unless he believed that one day it needed to be revealed. What was Jack's final decision? Stay tuned to find out. With a heavy heart, Jack reached out to an old journalist who had once covered Hollywood scandals in the 1970s. He anonymously sent the photographs, documents, and the cassette tape to the reporter, along with a simple note: "The truth was buried for too long. It's time for the world to know." Within weeks, headlines exploded across the media. Hidden Hollywood scandal from the 1960s finally exposed, linked to legendary actor Gene Hackman. The revelation sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Names that had once been untouchable were now facing scrutiny. The mysterious disappearance of Michael Harrington was reopened, and whispers of cover-ups and corruption spread like wildfire. Jack, however, chose to remain in the shadows. He quietly sold the gold coins, using the money to restore the aging Santa Fe home that had been his father's sanctuary. But the lockbox, the photographs, and the truth his father had protected for decades, those he left to history. As he stood in the living room, the wooden floor now replaced and polished, Jack couldn't help but feel the weight of what he had uncovered. Gene Hackman's final request wasn't just about keeping a secret. It was about protecting a truth too dangerous to reveal while he was alive. And now, the world finally knows why. What dark secrets from Hollywood's past are still lurking in the shadows? And what lengths will people go to in order to protect them? When Ben Marshall scaled the treacherous slopes to investigate, he found more than ancient symbols and weathered stone. Within the hidden chamber, a haunting secret made tears stream down his face.
Now, this is quite a discovery. Fragments of a biblical scroll, along with other relics, have been found in Desert Cave.
Had his late wife's stories been true all along? Join us as we reveal the mind-blowing moment when centuries of hidden history came crashing into this man's life, forever changing everything. The discovery of the doorway. High in an ancient mountain range shrouded by drifting clouds, drone pilot Ben Marshall made a discovery that would reshape everything he knew about his late wife's heritage. After spending 3 years methodically surveying these rugged cliffs, he had grown used to seeing only rocks and shadows through the drone's camera. But on this particular morning, the drone's feed showed something shocking and unmistakable: a door carved into solid stone. At first, Ben thought it might be a trick of the light. The seasoned pilot squinted at the screen, his breath fogging in the cold air as he guided the drone closer. There it was, clean geometric lines forming a perfect rectangle. Centuries of overgrowth had partly concealed the entrance, but enough of the rough-hewn carvings remained to show that this was no natural formation. A surge of excitement swept through the base camp's communication line when Ben relayed his coordinates and images to the ground team. This moment was especially powerful for Ben, who had taken on the expedition in memory of his late wife, Kanani. She had spent her life studying oral histories about a lost civilization known as the Anara, insisting there were remnants hidden in the wildest peaks of the archipelago. Her devotion had once seemed like a dream, too large and uncertain, yet here it stood, a gateway that might hold proof of everything she had believed. As the team assembled a climbing plan, the wind began to whistle across the cliffs, reminding them that nature can be as formidable as any locked door. Despite harsh weather and dizzying altitudes, the researchers and climbers pushed forward, determined to reach the mysterious entrance. Hanging from his neck, Ben carried Kanani's old pendant, a family heirloom rumored to be a key to understanding her people's past. Though he had always thought of it as little more than a keepsake, he felt a new spark of hope that it might serve a greater purpose. Upon reaching the doorway, the group discovered a massive boulder wedged behind it like a secret guard. Skilled climbers used ropes and careful rigging to set up a hydraulic system. Everyone held their breath as metal groaned under tension. The team eased the boulder aside, unveiling a dark chamber within. Flashlights danced over the walls, revealing swirling carvings and cryptic symbols, the kind Kanani had found in old journals and elder interviews. Ben's heart pounded when he saw a small, circular depression in the middle of a stone altar. Something in his gut told him to check the pendant. Pulling it from his coat, he realized it fit the space exactly. A hush fell over the chamber. With a slight click, the pendant locked in place. Then, lines of light glowed across the rock, illuminating hidden patterns. He could almost feel Kanani's presence guiding him. The hidden chamber. From the moment Ben Marshall and his team tugged the massive boulder aside, they knew they were about to witness something extraordinary. Tucked deep in the rugged mountain face, the doorway opened into a chamber thick with dust and silence. Each step they took echoed against walls that glowed faintly under the beams of their flashlights, revealing intricate carvings in swirling patterns. This was the hidden chamber that had haunted so many local legends, the kind of place people whispered about but never found. At the center stood a time-worn altar, its edges chipped and worn from centuries of neglect. Despite the aged stone, a perfect circular depression in the middle looked as smooth as when it was first carved. Ben's heart quickened as he recognized the symbols etched around it, patterns his late wife Kanani had researched in her quest to prove that her ancestors, the Anara, had once thrived in these mountains. As the team circled the altar, they realized that the chamber's wall carvings all led toward this singular place, as if everything important converged there. For all their preparation, no one expected how well the altar had been preserved. Tiny lines of carved text stretched out from the center, each pointing to different sets of symbols accompanied by images of crops, stars, and what appeared to be constellations. Dr. Thorne, the team's lead archaeologist, gasped when she shone her light across a partly hidden mural. She recognized scenes of crowded villages, ceremonies, and families passing down small objects that looked like necklaces or pendants. Could these be glimpses of the Anara's way of life? Ben, still reeling from the discovery of the doorway, carefully reached beneath his jacket and pulled out Kanani's old pendant. Whenever she had spoken of her people, she mentioned that this heirloom might one day help unlock the secrets they protected. Placing the pendant into the circular depression, he felt an almost electric thrill flow through his fingertips. At first, nothing happened. Then, faint lines of light began tracing the carvings, illuminating hidden pathways etched into the walls. The air felt charged, as though the very room had awakened after hundreds of years asleep. A beam of light formed a network of glowing lines across the stone, matching up with symbols and painted figures scattered around the chamber. Dr. Thorne's voice shook with excitement as she and Dr. Reeves, the team's writing systems expert, scrambled to capture everything on their tablets. They quickly realized that the altar was a key, a way to read and decode the layered carvings. What at first looked like random symbols now revealed itself as an elaborate code, telling the tale of the Anara and the trials that forced them to hide their knowledge. In the far corner of the chamber, they found the most moving discovery yet, a painted depiction of a proud woman wearing the same style pendant as Kanani's. It showed her standing guard over a small child and a trove of scrolls, as if vowing to protect their culture at all costs. Ben's eyes filled with tears. After years of searching, he had tangible proof that Kanani's devotion to these stories wasn't in vain. And more than that, he saw how an entire civilization, threatened by outside forces and desperate to survive, had chosen to safeguard its traditions within these hidden walls. Preservation of knowledge. Preserving knowledge can be the difference between a culture fading away forever or living on through the ages. For the Anara people, every song, carving, and heirloom carried hidden pieces of their identity. When colonizing forces came, threatening to erase their traditions, the Anara fought back in cunning, patient ways. Over time, these efforts formed a vast tapestry of personal stories, secret symbols, and hidden sanctuaries. Each element preserved a precious fragment of their culture and, woven together, created a roadmap that helped future generations rediscover their roots. Ben Marshall and his team first sensed the power of this preservation when they examined the hidden chamber in the high mountain peaks. Deep within the dark stone walls, they found an altar carved with the same swirling motifs passed down through Anara families for centuries. At its center rested a small depression, sized perfectly for a pendant that had been in Ben's family by way of his late wife, Kanani. When placed in the altar, this heirloom not only illuminated the chamber with an otherworldly glow, but also revealed a system of symbols meant to be read by those who still carried Anara blood and memory. These carvings spoke of an interconnected network of hidden knowledge. After centuries of oppression, the Anara had discovered how to conceal their most sacred teachings. They carved coded symbols into stone walls and crocheted cryptic patterns into tapestries. They passed on their secrets through lullabies and communal dances, choosing oral histories because invaders often overlooked stories told by the fireside. In the chambers they built, the Anara preserved everything from agricultural practices and medicinal remedies to spiritual beliefs and even star charts. They hid these records in places few people could reach, anticipating that one day their descendants would return. No single person or place carried the complete picture alone. Instead, every new fragment of knowledge discovered led researchers to the next clue. This approach was not only a shield against those who wanted to destroy the past, but also a living embodiment of the Anara's communal spirit. Each family guarded a different piece of wisdom. One might protect the method to grow hardy crops in high altitudes, while another passed on sacred songs that pointed to the location of new chambers. By scattering and carefully hiding these crucial facts, the Anara ensured that no conqueror could destroy their culture in one fell swoop. For Ben, the greatest revelation was how these long-forgotten traditions were designed to safeguard the future. Once the hidden chamber's carvings were decoded, they revealed data about the land's climate patterns and sustainable farming techniques that echoed modern research. This proved the Anara were not only preserving their heritage, but also offering solutions to challenges that continue to affect their descendants today. Their star charts, for instance, helped map seasonal changes that remain relevant for farming communities scattered across the archipelago. The role of oral tradition. Oral tradition played a powerful role in how the Anara people protected their culture, ensuring that even when outsiders tried to destroy their written records, their core knowledge would live on. Throughout generations, songs, stories, and shared memories took the place of formal texts. Rather than writing everything down where enemies could find and burn it, the Anara passed their wisdom through the spoken word, weaving it into daily life and family rituals. From a young age, children learned lullabies and chants without realizing they were actually preserving agricultural practices or astronomical data in each line. These tunes and verses acted like codes. The beauty was that no conqueror could erase information stored in the hearts and minds of ordinary people. This knowledge moved with them wherever they went, staying alive long after physical artifacts were lost or destroyed. Many elders became the memory keepers, carefully repeating the words of ancestors and encouraging younger villagers to do the same. Stories that seemed like mere folklore or bedtime tales contained hidden guidance about planting seasons, constellations in the sky, and cures for common illnesses. Because the colonizers treated these oral traditions as unimportant, they unknowingly gave the Anara a chance to save their legacy right under their noses. Kanani, whose research inspired Ben Marshall's expedition, grew up listening to such stories from her grandmother. These tales were often dismissed by outsiders as fantasy. Yet, Kanani knew they held vital connections to hidden doorways and unknown chambers scattered throughout the rugged mountains. Oral tradition didn't just keep scattered details alive, it protected entire ways of life, reminding future generations that they came from a resilient, resourceful people. When Ben and his team discovered the mountain doorway and the chamber beyond it, they saw how accurately the old stories led them there. Without these spoken accounts guiding their drone surveys, it would have been nearly impossible to uncover the entrance at all. Those folklore stories about doorways where the first rays of sunlight touched the cliffs turned out to be precise truths passed down through word of mouth. Within the hidden chamber, carvings and symbols confirmed much of what the elders had been saying all along. Personal narratives, lullabies, and seemingly quaint anecdotes all revealed themselves as pieces of a grand puzzle the Inara had scattered across time and distance. Decoding the symbols only proved how cleverly the Inara had shaped their oral tradition to preserve vital information, hiding it in songs, repeated phrases, and heirloom objects like Kanani's pendant. In the wake of rediscovering these stories, descendants of the Inara recognized the immense value in maintaining their oral culture. Younger community members started to document the songs and legends that their grandparents had recited, ensuring they wouldn't be forgotten if disasters struck again. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to check out the next video on your screen. You will enjoy it.